She pulled me into her lap from the reading chair, one hand at my waist, the other flat against the desk behind me, my thighs on either side of hers before I understood what was happening, and said against my mouth, "You've been holding your breath since you walked in here." Heat flooded low in my belly so fast I made a sound I did not recognize as mine. Her hand slid from my waist to the small of my back, pressing me forward, and she was looking at me like she had been deciding this for the past 2 hours, while I sat 3 feet away, watching her read. I did not move. I did not breathe. Her mouth found the corner of mine, and I stopped pretending I had any capacity for decision-making. If you want to hear uncensored too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. 2 hours earlier, the rain starts the moment I turn onto the street. Not dramatic rain. London. November rain, which is less weather and more atmosphere, the kind that settles into your coat collar and stays there, the kind that smells like stone and bus exhaust and wet leaves turning to pulp along the gutter. I have been standing outside the building for 11 minutes. I know this because I have looked at my phone 11 times, and each time I have put it back in my pocket and told myself that the next minute will be the one in which I go inside. The brass plate reads, Caldwell and Voss, Literary Press, established 1987, and it is buffed to a high shine that reflects the gray sky and a small, distorted version of my own face, looking back at me, which I consider briefly as a metaphor before deciding I cannot afford to be the kind of person who sees her own face in a brass plate and thinks, metaphor. I need to be the kind of person who goes inside. My manuscript is in my satchel. The satchel strap has been cutting into my left shoulder since I came off the tube at Russell Square, and I have not adjusted it because adjusting it would require putting the satchel down, and I have not put it down since I packed it this morning at 6:15, sitting on the edge of my bed in the flat above the bookshop in Camden with the pages stacked in the exact order I have rehearsed in my sleep for the past 3 months. 284 pages, 4 years and 11 months of not writing, followed by 4 months of writing like something was chasing me, which is the only accurate description I have of the process, because I do not know how else to explain the feeling of sitting at a desk at midnight with your hands shaking and the words coming out faster than you can manage them, and knowing, with the specific clarity that arrives only in the middle of the night, that the thing you are writing is the truest thing you have ever made and also the most terrifying. I have rewritten the opening line 43 times. I know it is 43 because I kept a list, which in retrospect was not a healthy choice, but was at least an organized one. The woman inside who will read it wrote the review that ended me. The Sunday Times Literary Supplement 5 years ago, 800 words. Noor Calder, then staff critic, now editor-in-chief at the press her mentor founded and left to her 3 years ago. I have the review memorized. Not because I have read it recently. I have not read it in 2 years, which I consider a form of progress. But because in the first year after it was published, I read it so many times that it printed itself into me the way certain things do when you are 23, and your first book has just been described as competent ventriloquism in the voice of a writer who does not yet exist. I have never forgotten that phrase. I have thought about it constantly. I have thought about it the way you think about something that hurt you so precisely it felt personal, the way you spend years trying to decide whether the thing that ended you was cruelty or accuracy, and then more years trying to decide whether the distinction matters. I go inside. The receptionist does not look up, she says. 3rd floor, rear office, she's expecting you. There's a small elevator with a folding gate at the far end of the entrance hall, but I do not take it. I take the stairs. The building is Georgian and the stairs are original, each step worn to a shallow curve in the center from 130 years of feet, and the banisters are dark wood that has been polished until it has the quality of something deeply known, something that has been touched so many times it has absorbed the touching. There is crown molding at every landing, and the walls are a specific shade of dark green that I recognize from the cover of the first edition of a novel I read when I was 17 and decided, with the certainty only 17-year-olds have access to, that I would spend my life making things like this. I take the stairs slowly. I need the extra 90 seconds to remember how to arrange my face into something that does not say, "I have thought about you every single day since you destroyed me." I knock on the door marked with a small card in a brass frame. The card reads, N. Calder, Editor-in-Chief, in a font that is neither welcoming nor forbidding, and manages somehow to be both. She says, "Come in." Her voice through the door does something to the inside of my chest that I am going to file, for the moment, as professional apprehension. I open the door. Noor Calder is standing at the bay window when I arrive. Her back is to me. Charcoal wool suit, trousers cut narrow, jacket fitted at the waist. Not severe, but precise. The kind of tailoring that suggests someone who decided years ago exactly what she wanted to look like and has not revised that decision since. Her hair is in a low twist, jet black, secured with what I will later understand is a tortoiseshell pin, though from here it is simply the fact of her hair being up and the fact of her neck being visible, long and clean, pale against the dark wool. She's taller than I remembered. She's always taller than I remembered. The bay window behind her holds the November garden. Bare branches, wet stone, gray light that enters the room diffuse and flat and turns everything in it to a careful drawing of itself. The brass desk lamp is on. It throws a warm pool across the desk surface and the stack of pages she has already set there, which I will understand in a moment are not my pages because she has not yet taken them. She does not turn around immediately. She says, "Close the door behind you, Wren." She uses my first name. I note this. I close the door. The bolt mechanism clicks in a way that sounds in the silence of the room like punctuation. She turns. 5 years have made her sharper. That is the only word I have. Sharper, in the cheekbones, which were already defined, and in the jawline, which was already precise, and in the way she looks at me like she is reading something I did not know I had written. Her eyes are very dark, not dramatic, just the specific quality of depth that some eyes have, the quality of still water where light does not quite reach the bottom. She looks at me for a moment that is not long by any objective measure, but that I will be calculating for weeks afterward. Then she gestures to the chair opposite her desk. I sit. The reading chair is covered in dark green leather that matches the walls of the stairwell, worn at the arms in a way that suggests specific elbows over many years. The desk between us is wide, walnut, stacked at the far corners with manuscripts in various states of annotation, and in its center is the space she's already preparing for mine. I can see this because she has moved the desk lamp slightly to create it. She comes around to my side of the desk, not to my chair, but close, and extends her hand, not in greeting, for the manuscript. She takes it from my satchel before I have fully decided to give it to her, sets it on the desk between us, and returns to her own chair with the unhurried economy of someone who has never in her adult life made an unnecessary physical movement. She opens to page 1. She says, without looking up, "I've been wondering when you'd come back. I do not say every day for 5 years. I do not say I have been trying and failing to write anything worth reading since the morning your review came out. I do not say you are the only press that returned my agent's query, and my agent has been very patient with me. But her patience has a texture now that feels like the end of patience, and this manuscript is the last real thing I have, and I am leaving it with the only person who might understand it, because she is also the person who made me understand that the first book didn't. I say, I had to wait until I had something worth bringing." She looks up. For half a second, just half, her expression does something I cannot quite read. Then it resolves back into the particular kind of composed attention that is, I understand now, her professional face. The face she brings to manuscripts, the face she brought to mine 5 years ago when she read it and decided with 800 words what it was worth. She says, "I'll need 2 hours. There's tea on the radiator." She begins to read. The radiator is beneath the window, and there is indeed tea. 2 porcelain cups, white with a thin blue line, steam rising in the gray afternoon light. I pour one. My hands are steady. I take this as a small victory. I sit back in the reading chair and attempt to arrange myself into someone who is not watching the editor-in-chief of Caldwell. And Voss read her debut manuscript while rain begins against the glass. I watch her hands. This is not intentional, it is simply where my attention goes, repeatedly and without my cooperation, over the first 20 minutes. Her hands are long-fingered, no rings, pale against the cream pages. She holds the manuscript at a slight angle, her right hand at the bottom of the page, and her left, where she has been holding since I arrived a tortoiseshell fountain pen, resting at the margin, not writing, resting. The pen is the same color as the pin in her hair, amber dark, translucent, the kind of object that suggests both precision and a specific taste developed over years. She reads with an absolute stillness that I find, after the first 10 minutes, deeply difficult to look away from. Then she taps the pen. One tap against the manuscript margin, the tip of the pen against the page. A short, precise sound in the quiet room, quieter than the rain, quieter than the radiator. She does not look up when she does it. She simply taps once and then sets the pen back to the margin and turns the page. I file this as a habit, a reflex, an editorial tick, meaning nothing. She does it again at the bottom of page 6. One tap, turn. She does it at page 11, at page 16, at page 23. By the 4th time, I have stopped pretending I am not counting. By the 4th time, I have noticed something my body registered before my brain arrived at. The moment before the tap, there is a half second in which she goes perfectly, completely still. Not the still of concentration, but a different still. The still of something arriving. And then the tap, and then the page turns, and the spell breaks. My stomach drops a little every time. This is involuntary, and I am not pleased about it. The rain increases. The radiator ticks. I hold my tea with both hands and watch her turn page 30. She reaches page 31 and stops. She does not tap the pen. She simply stops, page held, and looks up at me with an expression that I cannot place, because I have been studying her face for the past 30 minutes and I still do not have enough data to read it. Her eyes move across my face in a way that feels like she's checking something she already knows. She says, "You're writing afraid." The room is very quiet. I can hear the rain, which has become insistent now, a soft, continuous pressure against the glass. I can hear the radiator. I can hear, with a clarity that seems unreasonable, the sound of my own breathing. I say nothing. Because she is right, and I know she is right, and there is a specific humiliation in being right about this that I have been trying to outrun for 4 years, and apparently have not outrun. Because here it is, in 800 words, she has not even spoken yet, in 2 syllables. Afraid. She stands. She comes around the desk. This is not the movement she made before, not the direct extension of authority. This is slower, more deliberate, and she stops 2 feet from my chair, rather than behind the desk. Closer than professional. Not touching. 2 feet in a room this size is a negotiated distance, and she has chosen it, and I am aware of this the way I am aware of my own pulse, which is currently doing something I would prefer it not to. The scent of her reaches me here. Cedar and cold linen. Not perfume exactly. More elemental than that, the kind of scent that is close to a person's actual temperature. I breathe it in without choosing to. I have the sudden, unwelcome conviction that I will recognize this scent in rooms where she is not present for the rest of my life. She says, "The first novel was angry, reckless. This one is holding itself at arm's length from everything it wants to say." Her voice at this proximity does something different. In the hallway through the door, it was a fact. Here it is, something my chest interprets as temperature change. Not warmth, not cold, but the exact quality of air shifting when a door opens to the outside, the moment before you can tell which way it will go. She speaks quietly. She does not soften the words. She says, "The anger was wrong in the first book, but it was yours. This is controlled, and it is not yours. It is the book you thought would be safe." I look at her. My mouth opens and closes. She says, "You know I'm right." I do. She reaches forward. I do not move. Her left hand, the hand that has been holding the tortoiseshell pen, which she has set on the desk behind her, extends toward me, and for 1/2 second, my body does not understand the geometry and simply stops all its systems and waits. Her fingers find my wrist. 2 fingers, the index and the middle, pressed to the inside of my left wrist, where the veins run close to the surface and the skin is thin, and she can feel, I know she can feel. Because the whole point of that location is that it is visible, is the pulse there. She holds them there, does not press hard, just rests them against that thin skin with the quality of certainty, as if she has checked this specific thing before and knows what she is looking for. She says, "This is the only true thing in the room right now." Her fingers are cool. Not cold, cool, the specific temperature of someone who has been sitting in a room for 30 minutes, where the brass desk lamp heats the desk surface and not the air. Against the inside of my wrist, which is apparently much warmer than I realized, they feel like a question delivered in the wrong register. My pulse under her fingers is doing nothing that serves me. It is accelerating in a way that is unmistakable, and that she is in the precise position to feel, and that I cannot do anything about because she has 2 fingers on it and she is watching my face. She does not remove her hand. The radiator ticks. The rain is loud now against the glass. A voice rises briefly from the floor below and disappears. She says, "This is what the book needs, not control. This. I say, "You're reading my pulse." She says, "Yes." I say, as editorial feedback. The corner of her mouth moves. Not a smile, a contained thing, something that lives just at the edge of what a face will reveal if the face is very disciplined. She says, "The most accurate kind." She removes her fingers. The inside of my wrist goes immediately alert, the way skin does when something that has been warm is taken away. Not pain, just the shape of the absence, cool and specific. I press my wrist against my knee under the desk and pretend I am not doing this. She picks up the pen. She goes back to reading. She taps it once against page 32 before she speaks again, and my stomach drops exactly as it has every previous time, and I sit very still in the green leather chair and attempt to breathe at regular intervals. The tea goes cold. Neither of us notices. She reads for another 40 minutes. She taps the pen 6 more times. I know because I counted, which I have stopped pretending is not happening. Page 38, 41, 47, 53, 59, 62. Each tap a small event. Each tap my stomach doing something that does not belong in a professional editorial meeting. By page 62, I have stopped rationalizing this as a nervous response to the professional context. By page 62, I have started accepting that my body has decided entirely without my permission that the tap of a tortoiseshell pen against a manuscript page in this specific room is now the most loaded sound in my personal acoustic landscape, and that there is very little I can do about this except continue to sit in the green leather chair with my wrist pressed against my knee and wait for her to finish. She closes the manuscript at page 68. She sets it on the desk and sets the pen across the top of it, perpendicular to the spine. She looks at me for a long moment. The gray light has deepened outside the bay window. Not dark yet, just further into November afternoon. That quality of light that isn't going anywhere, but has decided to become less helpful about everything it touches. The desk lamp makes a warm island of the desk surface and the pages in her hands. The rest of the room has retreated to something cooler. She says, "Stand up, Wren." I stand. She does not move from her position behind the desk. She looks at me. Not the appraising editorial look of the last hour, something different, something that has a direction to it, that is looking at me specifically and not at the manuscript I represent. She says, "Come here." I cross the room, 3 steps. The geometry of the office, suddenly very legible. The narrow rectangle, the desk at the window end, my chair at the far end, and the distance between us closing as I walk toward her. I stop at the desk's edge, close enough to see the tortoiseshell pin in her hair. Close enough to smell cedar and cold linen, she says, "Tell me what you wanted to write. Not what you thought would be publishable. Not what you thought would be safe. What you actually wanted." Her hand moves to my elbow. Not gripping, just present, the warm, curved pressure of her palm against the outside of my arm at the joint. I look at her hand, long fingers. The pen still on the desk beside us, its amber surface catching the desk lamp in a small, warm gleam. She says, "I can wait." I open my mouth, I say, "I wanted to write something that didn't apologize." Her grip on my elbow shifts, not tighter, but more deliberate. She says, "For what?" "For wanting things." I say it very quietly. "For the specific things I want." She looks at me for a moment that has no business being as long as it is. Then she stands, and the geometry shifts again. She is taller now, close, and her hand has moved from my elbow to my waist. And I understand suddenly that the distance between us has been decreasing by increments since the moment she put her fingers on my wrist, and I am only now noticing the shape of the whole arc of it. She says, "And what are those?" I look at her. She looks at me. The rain presses against the glass. The radiator ticks once, then stops. My body registers what is happening before my mind has finished the sentence about it. The warmth of her hand at my waist, the quality of her attention, which is not the editorial attention of the past hour, but something else, something that has the same precision, but a different object. Her scent at this distance. Her breath, which is slower than mine and more deliberate. The breath of someone choosing what to do with the next moment, rather than simply arriving at it. She says very quietly, "Don't answer that yet." Her other hand finds the manuscript on the desk, sets it to one side, clears the space between us without looking at it. Then her hand comes back, and she is looking at me with that still quality, that depth of water quality, and I understand in a way that arrives physically before it arrives as thought that she has been making decisions in this room while she read, and I have been sitting 3 feet away, watching her hands. I say, "How long have you been thinking about this?" She says, "Longer than I'm going to tell you." She pulls me closer by the hand at my waist, and I go. And there is a moment, specific, suspended, the moment that all the smaller moments have been building toward without my noticing, where her mouth is 2 inches from mine, and neither of us has moved the final distance yet, and the room is very loud with rain and my own heartbeat, and the quality of her breath against my lips, warm and controlled and present. And I understand that she is not rushing this because she has been waiting, and she does not intend to waste it. Then she pulls me down into her lap, both hands at my waist, firm and certain, turning me so my thighs are on either side of hers, and I am facing her, and the desk is behind me, and the window is behind her, with the gray garden beyond it. And the whole room has reorganized around this single fact of her deciding. She says against my mouth, "You've been holding your breath since you walked in here." Heat floods low in my belly so fast I make a sound I do not recognize as mine. Her hand slides from my waist to the small of my back, pressing me forward, and she is looking at me the way she has been looking at me all afternoon, like she is reading something, like she found the line she was looking for and is deciding what to do with it. The sound of the rain is suddenly very present. The brass lamp throws warm light across her face, and I can see exactly how still she is holding herself and exactly what that stillness is costing. She says, "Quieter. Breathe, Ren." I do not breathe. Her mouth finds the corner of mine, and I stop pretending I have any capacity for decision-making. This is the moment I will think about later. Not the things that happen after, which are their own category entirely. But this specific moment, the corner of her mouth against the corner of mine, her hands steady at my back, the rain going on the glass, the manuscript on the desk behind her with the pen laid across it like a mark, the restraint of it, what it costs her, what it costs me to receive it without dissolving. Her mouth does not move for what feels like a very long time. Then it moves and I dissolve anyway. Her hand comes up from my waist, unhurried, deliberate, the way she does everything, and finds my jaw. She tilts it with the cap end of the pen, not holding it, just the smooth amber cap against my chin, a pressure so light it barely registers as physical, and yet sends the back of my neck alert in a way that travels down my spine and arrives somewhere well below my ribs. She tips my face up, looks at me. Her eyes at this distance are very dark and very still, and looking at them is like standing at the edge of water and understanding that the depth is not decorative. She says, "You came back." I say, "You're the only press that responded." She says, "That is not why you came back." She is correct. I do not say this. I say nothing. She sets the pen down. I hear it against the desk surface beside us, a small, distinct tap, and my stomach does the thing it has been doing all afternoon. Except now she's 8 inches from my face, and there is nowhere to file it. Her hand finds my face without the pen now, palm against my cheek, and her thumb, just her thumb, traces the line of my cheekbone with a pressure that is barely there, and somehow everywhere. She says, "I read your book 5 years ago, and I knew you were going to be extraordinary if you could stop being careful. I said the wrong things in the wrong way, and I have spent 5 years knowing that." I look at her. My chest is doing something that does not have a clinical name. She says, "I owe you an apology, and I am giving you one. And then I am going to offer you a contract." I say, "In that order." The corner of her mouth again, that contained not smile. She says, "Yes, in that order." She leans forward. Her mouth meets mine, not a corner this time, fully with intent, with the specific quality of something that has been decided, rather than something that is happening accidentally. Her hand at my jaw steadies me. She kisses me with the same economy she brings to everything. Nothing wasted, nothing performed, all of it directed and certain and present. The radiator ticks. The rain is a steady pressure. My hands, which have been uncertain at my sides for the past 30 seconds, find her lapels, both hands the charcoal wool of her jacket. And I hold on. She pulls back, half an inch, looks at me. Her breathing is different from what it was. Slower, which I understand is the opposite of what it should be under these circumstances, and which means she is managing it, which means it is costing her something to manage it, which is the most startling thing I have learned about Noor Calder in the past 2 hours. She looks like a woman who is choosing to go slowly for specific reasons of her own and who is very aware of what that choice requires. She says, "Tell me what you wanted to write." Her hands move to my waist again, thumbs pressing into the soft place above my hips with a deliberate warmth that she holds there and does not move. I can feel her through my cardigan. The radiator has started ticking again in a slow, uneven rhythm. I open my mouth. She is looking at my mouth. I say, "I wanted to write something that knew what it wanted." She says, "And?" I say, "And wasn't sorry about it." She says, very quietly, "Yes." She stands, which changes the geometry again. I am suddenly standing where she was, pressed forward toward the desk, and she is in front of me and the window is behind her, and the gray garden light makes a frame around her that is entirely undeserved by the situation and deeply inconvenient to look at. Her hands stay at my waist. They do not grip. They simply remain warm and certain, the way a fact remains. She says, "The manuscript is good. The last 40 pages are the ones you stopped being afraid." I say, "I know." She says, "I need you to write the first 244 pages from the same place." I say, "That's a significant revision." She says, "Yes." I say, "How long do I have?" She says, "However long it takes." "You're going to do it here." I look at her. She looks at me. The implication of here settles into the room and takes up a specific amount of space. Her hands are still at my waist. The tortoiseshell pen is on the desk to my right, its amber surface still holding a small gleam from the lamp. I say, "Here." She says, "The press has a residency arrangement. There's a flat on the 4th floor. Quiet, north-facing, good light." I say, "You're offering me a residency." She says, "I'm offering you a contract, a residency, and the specific editorial attention I should have given you 5 years ago." I say, "And the other thing." She does not pretend not to know what I mean. Her hands at my waist shift. The smallest movement, a compression, both palms pressing inward a single millimeter. And the effect of this particular millimeter on the back of my neck and the base of my throat is disproportionate in a way I'm not going to examine in detail. She says, "That is separate. That is not conditional on anything." I say, "I know." She says, "But it has been a factor in my patience for the past 5 years, and I am choosing to be honest about that." I look at her for a long time. The rain against the glass, the radiator, the manuscript behind her with the pen laid across it, amber against cream. She's watching me with that still, deep water quality, and her hands are at my waist, and she has just said the most honest thing anyone has said to me in years, and the inside of my chest is doing something I do not have a word for. I say, "The review." She says, "Yes." I say, "Was it true?" She says, "Yes." It was also unkind in a way that was personal rather than editorial, and I have known that for 5 years. I say, "Why personal?" She's quiet for a moment, long enough that the radiator ticks twice, and the rain makes it sound, and I become very aware of the specific quality of the silence in this room. Insulated, complete, nothing from the floor below reaching us. She says, "Because I read your book, and I understood exactly what you were capable of, and the gap between what you were capable of and what you had done was the most frustrating thing I had encountered in 8 years of criticism." She pauses. She says, "And because something about the way you wrote about wanting things made me want to take your manuscript apart, sentence by sentence, until you understood what you were actually saying." I say, "Which was?" She says, "That you knew exactly what you wanted and were performing uncertainty about it to make it safe." My hands are still on her lapels. I did not notice I was still holding on. I say, "And now," she says, "and now you don't need me to take it apart. You did it yourself. The last 40 pages are the proof." She looks at me for another moment, and then she does something I was not expecting. She reaches up and takes one of my hands from her lapel and holds it, not releasing it, not setting it aside, simply holding it between both of hers with a careful pressure. The same careful pressure she used on my wrist an hour ago, and looks at it the way she looked at the manuscript. Her thumb traces the inside of my wrist once, slowly, from the joint to the base of my palm. My pulse under her thumb is doing something completely beyond my control. She says, without looking up, "You were going to be extraordinary. You still are. The 5 years were not wasted." She looks up. She says, "I should not have been the reason for them." Something opens in my chest. I do not cry. I am not a crier particularly, and I would find it actively offensive to cry in this office in front of this woman. but something opens, some specific pressure that has been in there since a Tuesday morning 5 years ago when I opened a browser tab on the laptop in my studio flat and read 800 words and understood that my life had changed shape. Something that has been closed for 5 years simply opens, quietly, in the gray November light, and she sees it happen, and she does not look away. She says, very quietly, "Come here." She pulls me in by the hand she's still holding. Not into her lap this time, just forward so I am standing against her, her arms around me with a firmness that is not tentative about itself, my face at her shoulder, the cedar and cold linen scent very present here, close to the source, and beneath it something warmer. She holds me with the same precision she brings to everything. Deliberate, decided, not performing comfort, but providing it, which is entirely different. My hands find her back. She says, into the top of my head, "I'm not sorry I read your wrist." I say into her shoulder. "I know." She says, "It was the truest thing in the room." I say, "It still is." She pulls back, just enough to look at me again, her hands at my face now, both palms, steady, her thumbs resting against my cheekbones without moving, holding my face with the quality of something she has decided to do rather than something that is happening to her. Her dark eyes, at this distance, are the most undoing thing I have looked at in years. Not because they are soft. They are not soft. They are precise and clear and see things with a specificity that is almost medical, but because they are looking at me, specifically, like I am the only manuscript in the room. She says, "You are going to write the book you came here to write." I say, "Yes," she says, "and then you're going to write the one after that, and I am going to be here for both of them." I say, "That's a significant commitment for someone who hired me 40 minutes ago." She says, "I hired you from page 1. I look at her. Her hands are still at my face. The pen is on the desk. The manuscript is on the desk. The rain is doing its continuous quiet work against the glass. I become aware, with a clarity that feels almost comic in its lateness, that the reason she looked up from page 31 was not because something in the book surprised her. It was because she needed to check whether the thing she had been sitting with for 5 years was still accurate. I say, "You've been thinking about this since page 1. She says, "I've been thinking about this since before page 1. Her thumb moves, just her left thumb, against my cheekbone. Not stroking, just a single slow press. Held, released. The effect of this on the back of my neck is immediate and specific. The effect of this on my chest is immediate and large. She's watching me with an attention that has now fully and completely stopped being editorial and become something else for which I do not have a cleaner word than wanting. And the thing that is happening to my breathing has stopped being voluntary. I say, "Nor." She says, "Yes." I say, "I came here to give you my manuscript." She says, "I know." I say, "I think I came here for something else also." She says, the thumb moving again, once against the same place. "I know." She tilts my face. The pen is not in her hand now, but I feel the memory of it in the specific angle she uses, the cap end pressure, translated now into the pad of her thumb at my chin, tilting upward. And she kisses me again, and this time there is no restraint in it beyond the choice itself. The deliberate quality of her choosing this, of her choosing to release the restraint she has maintained in this room for 2 hours, while she read my manuscript and tapped her pen and put 2 fingers on my pulse. The release is not collapse, it is decided. It is the most exquisitely decided thing I have experienced. Her hands move from my face to my waist, and she steps into me, and I step back against the desk, and the manuscript pages scatter against the floor. A soft, fanning sound, page after page, like something being laid down, and I do not care. The pen rolls to the edge of the desk and drops. I hear it land somewhere near the radiator. She pulls back, her hands stay at my waist. She says, "I'm going to take you upstairs." I say, "To the residency flat." She says, "Yes. And then you're going to sleep, and in the morning you're going to start the revision." I say, "In that order." The corner of her mouth, the not smile. She says, "In that order." Although not immediately. She reaches past me and picks up the pen from the desk. I did not register it falling back, but she has retrieved it from somewhere near my left elbow, and she taps it once against the corner of the manuscript page nearest her. One tap. The sound I have been associating all afternoon with the drop in my stomach, with the specific heat that gathers at the base of my ribs when she is about to speak, and I know the thing she is about to say is going to be true. She sets the pen down. She says, The contract will be on your desk in the morning. I say, you haven't read the full manuscript. She says, I've read enough. I knew by page 10. The last 40 pages confirmed what I had already decided. I say, then why did you read all 68? She says, because you were sitting in that chair and I was not ready for it to be over. This is the most honest thing I have heard in 5 years from another person, and possibly the most honest thing I have heard in my life. And I look at her in the gray November light with the pen on the desk and the pages on the floor and the radiator ticking, and I understand that the thing I thought was a reckoning has turned out to be something else entirely. Something that does not have a clean editorial word for it. Something that has to be written rather than named. She extends her hand. Not for the manuscript this time. I take it. She leads me to the door of the office and opens it, and the sounds of the floor below, muffled, distant, someone's phone, and the creak of an old building in the cold, come briefly into the room and then recede as we take the stairs upward. Her hand is warm. My manuscript is on the floor. The pen is on the desk. The tea went cold 2 hours ago, and neither of us drank the second cup. I follow her up. The 4th floor flat is small and north-facing as promised, a single room with a writing desk under the window and a narrow bed against the wall and a view of the same wet garden visible from her office. Though from this angle the light is different. Less gray, more the specific quality of London dark gathering early in November. The kind of dark that is not absence but accumulation. She turns on the lamp beside the bed. Warm light, a different quality from the desk lamp downstairs, softer and without the professional associations. And in it, she looks different too. Not less precise, but the precision serving something other than work. She says, there's a blanket in the wardrobe. The radiator is slow to warm. I say, you've planned this. She says, I've been ready for this for 5 years. She says it simply, without apology, the way she says everything. As fact, as something she has reviewed and found accurate and is delivering without unnecessary modification. She's looking at me in the lamplight. Her jacket is still on. Her hair is still in its twist with the tortoiseshell pin. The pen is downstairs on the desk, and I find that I am aware of its absence in the same way I have been aware all afternoon of what it meant when it was present. Some specific calibration of my attention that the sound of it has been tuning all afternoon and that is still active now, even in the silence where the sound was. I say, you wrote the review to make me better. She says, I wrote the review because I was a critic and the review was accurate. I was unkind because something in your book made me want things I had not been planning to want. I say, and now. She says, now you came back with a manuscript that is almost the best thing I've read in 3 years, and you are going to finish it, and it is going to be the best thing I've published. I say, that's a professional assessment. She says, yes. I say, and the other thing. She says, the other thing is also true. She crosses the room and takes my face in her hands again. The gesture she has now done 3 times, and that my body has stopped pretending is not its own category of information, has stopped filing under professional or contextual or anything other than what it is, which is her hands, her specific, cool then warming hands, against my face, with that quality of decision and precision and care that is her. She tilts my face up, not with the pen, with her hands, and she says, very quietly, close, you have been holding your breath for 5 years. I say, I know. She says, breathe. Her mouth meets mine. Not the careful, restrained thing from downstairs in the office. Something more open than that, more decided, her hands in my hair now. The twist loosening and I realize it is her pin coming free. I can feel it happening, her hair beginning to come down against the side of my face in a slow, dark weight. And she is kissing me like the decision has been made. And she is simply moving through it now, fully, without holding any of it back. And the thing it cost her to be, this is nothing like the thing it cost her to sit across a desk and read 30 pages and pretend that the woman in the green chair was just a manuscript's author, and not the specific person she had been waiting for. I pull her down onto the narrow bed. She comes without resistance, which is its own information. That she allows this, that she follows my lead here, that the authority she carries in the building below stops at this door and something more equal takes its place. She's above me and the lamplight is warm against the side of her face, and her hair is down now, loose, not the controlled twist I have been observing all afternoon. And she's looking at me the way she looked at page 31 of my manuscript, like she found the true thing and is deciding what to do with it. She says, "You're not writing afraid anymore." I say, "No." She says, "Good." Her hands find the buttons of my cardigan and she undoes them one at a time, not rushing, looking at my face rather than her hands with the same attention she brought to the manuscript. Thorough and present and not willing to skip anything. The cardigan comes off, the cool air of the flat against my arms and throat. Her hands at the hem of my dress, finding the skin of my sides, palms warm against my ribs, and I feel my breath change the moment she touches skin. Warm hands now. They have warmed through the evening, through the 2 hours of sitting in the same room, through the careful accumulated heat of proximity and decision. She presses them flat against my ribs and holds them there, not moving, just present, and I feel my heart beat against the inside of her palms. She says, "There it is." I say, "What?" She says, "The thing you came here to write." She kisses me again, and her hands move, and I stop thinking in narrative. I stop thinking in sentences, in structure, in the language of making things, and move instead into the language of receiving them, which is older and quieter and requires nothing of me except presence. Sometime later, I have lost the specific count of minutes. She is above me looking at my face, and her expression has the quality of something very controlled, releasing itself slowly, like pressure being released from a sealed thing, deliberate and chosen, and not quite what I expected. She is choosing this. Every particular of it. I can see her choosing it in the quality of her attention, the way she moves, the economy of it, that is somehow not economy at all but its opposite. Everything directed, nothing wasted, fully present. She says against my throat, "Ask me to stop." I say, "Don't stop." She says, "I need you to choose this." I say, "I'm choosing it." "I chose it when I walked in the door," she says, very quietly. Her mouth at the place where my throat meets my shoulder. "You chose it before that." I say, "Yes." She says, "I know." She says my name, just my name. Ren. 2 letters, and a sound that in her mouth has the quality of the pen tap, the quality of arrival, of something that has been building all afternoon landing at last. The inside of my chest shudders with it. Her hands are certain. Her mouth is certain. The restraint she maintained for 2 hours in the office below is not gone. It is simply being applied to something else, to the specific management of how much of herself she releases at once and in what order. And the quality of that management is the most erotic thing I have ever been near. The tortoiseshell pin is on the bedside table. I do not know when it arrived there. Her hair is entirely loose, dark against the pillow and against my shoulder and against the white of the coverlet. The lamp is still on. The rain has quieted outside, not stopped, just diminished to a fine, continuous presence. The kind of rain that is less weather and more condition. She says, her mouth finding mine, "You're going to write something extraordinary." I say, "You haven't finished reading the manuscript." She says, "I've read enough." I say, "That's not good editorial practice." She says, and I can feel the not smile against my mouth, "No, it isn't." She taps the bedside table once with her finger, index finger, one tap, the same rhythm as the pen against the margin. And the sound of it, that specific sound, does the thing it has been doing all afternoon, the thing I have entirely stopped filing incorrectly, the drop in my stomach, the heat, the feeling of something arriving that has been building for a very long time. She is looking at me. She says, still afraid. I say, "Of what?" She says, "Of how much you want this." I look at her for a long moment. The lamp, the rain at the window, her face above mine with the precision and the depth of water quality and the hair loose now. All of it changed from the way she stood at the office window 2 hours ago, and also none of it changed because she's exactly the same person, the same quality of contained and decided and fully present. I say, "Yes," she says, "Good. Right from there." She kisses me and does not stop, and the rain goes on at the window, and the lamp stays on all night, and the manuscript is 4 floors below us on the floor of the office, with the pages out of order, and the tortoiseshell pen somewhere near the radiator, and neither of us is thinking about any of that. Later. Much later. We are on the floor of the flat, for reasons I cannot immediately reconstruct, sitting with our backs against the side of the narrow bed, and the lamp still on, and the window showing the deep gray of very early London morning, the sky not yet deciding what it will be, my back against the bed frame, her beside me. Her jacket has been on the chair since before I can remember. Her hair is loose against her shoulder. She has the specific quality of someone who has let something go that they have been holding for a very long time, which looks from the outside like stillness, but is a different kind of stillness from the one she keeps in the office. Looser, more inhabited, a stillness that has room in it. She reaches for my hand, laces our fingers together, does not let go. She says, "I'm publishing the manuscript." I turn to look at her. She's looking at the ceiling. She says, "I was always going to publish it." From page 1, I say, "Then why?" She says, "Because you needed to stop being afraid of me." She turns her head and looks at me, and the thing in her face, in the specific quality of her dark eyes in the lamplight, in the angle of her jaw, in the way she is holding my hand with the same deliberate pressure she has applied to everything tonight, is something I have not seen in another person's face before. Something I do not have a ready word for. Something I suspect belongs to the category of things that have to be written rather than named. She says, "I have been waiting 5 years for you to come back. I was not patient about it." I say, "You seemed patient." She says, "I had to seem patient." I look at her. The window, the gray early light, the manuscript 4 floors below on the office floor, its pages out of order in a way that pleases me, though I cannot immediately say why. I say, "You owe me 800 words." She says, "I know." I say, "An apology in print." She says, "Name the venue." I look at her. Something in my chest turns over slowly like a page. I say, "The Sunday Times Literary Supplement," the corner of her mouth. The fullest version of the not smile I have seen yet. Not quite a smile, but something warmer than the contained version, something that has been given a little more room. She says, "I'll make some calls." She pulls me closer, shoulder to shoulder, and her mouth finds my temple. Not a kiss exactly, a presence. Her breath warm against that specific location, and I feel the warmth of it travel, not as it did the first time she was near me. Not with the quality of alarm, but with something different, something that has the quality of recognition, something that has found its location and settled there. I say, "I'm not leaving." She says, "I know." I say, "The residency." She says, "Among other things." The rain has genuinely stopped now. The flat is quiet. The lamp makes its warm circle. She's holding my hand. The tortoiseshell pen is on the bedside table, where it has been since some point I did not track. And in the morning light, barely morning, just the suggestion of it, its amber surface is still, not gleaming, just present and specific in itself. She says, "You're staying." Not a question. I look at the pen. I look at her. I think about the manuscript on the floor 4 stories below, with its pages out of order, and its last 40 pages that are the ones where I stopped being afraid, and I think about the opening line I have rewritten 43 times, and I think about the 44th version, which I have not yet written, which is somewhere in the next 4 months in this north-facing flat above this Georgian press in November Bloomsbury. And I think about the fact that the woman sitting beside me with her hair down and her hand in mine is the same woman who wrote the 800 words that ended me, and also the same woman who said, "I knew you were going to be extraordinary," and meant both things, both of them true simultaneously, which is the kind of thing you can only write if you stop being afraid of how much the truth costs. I say, "Yes." She does not say anything else. She turns back to the ceiling, and we sit there together in the almost morning, her hand in mine, the rain gone, the pen on the table, the flat quiet and specific around us, and I begin, in the way that writers begin things before they know they are beginning them, to draft the opening line of the book I am actually going to write. It does not apologize.